Latch earnings also came out recently here, and a little bit of a reaction to the stock, and that really seemed to me to be more related to the guidance revision. But I'll let you talk more about that. What stood out to you in this quarter for Latch.com?
It's the guidance revision and the general just kind of SPAC pessimism going on right now. Pretty much any company that went public through a SPAC is tanking right now. Not necessarily because of anything wrong with their business. And when you look at the numbers, this is another one where it's tough to find anything other than maybe that guidance revision to be that upset about. Bookings, which is, as we've said, the number that you want to pay attention to, is up 90. It was about 96 million, up just over 100% year over year. Annual recurring revenue, which is a big part of any subscription-driven business, up 122% year over year. The revenue figure itself is only $9 million, which for any company that's trading in the billions, it sounds very, very low on the surface.
Yeah.
And they're not profitable, which no one expected them to be for years. If you're doubling your bookings year over year, no one really cares what you're earning at that point. At some point, people will, but so bookings are the number to pay attention to, because that's, like I said, when they're installing their product in a multifamily building, that takes years to develop. So you want they book it when it's still in its early stages. A couple of highlights going on, and then there's one thing I really wanted to point out about Latch's revenue. So first, I want to get your take on this. They got their SPAC money early in June. Remember, their SPAC deal was completed. So toward the end of the quarter, they just reported. One of the first things they did, they hired a chief marketing officer for the first time. And tell me what you think of this resume. Former senior vice president of Endeavor, and the former global head of content and lifestyle strategy at Apple.
I've heard of Apple. I mean, up and comer, I understand, in the tech space. I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, that sounds like a pretty rich work history.
Right. So they're the $500 million or so they got as part of the SPAC deal isn't reflected in this quarter's numbers, which is one big thing to keep in mind.
Right.
I mentioned their revenue is only $9 million. So check this out. 80% of that was from hardware, the locks and stuff like that they sell for the smart homes.
Sure.
They made $7.2 million in revenue from hardware. The cost of that revenue was over $8 million. So they lost money on hardware.
So they're loss leaders.
Right. So they're loss leaders. Negative 11% profit margin that works out to. On the software side, they did $1.8 million from software. So not a ton yet. That only cost them $173,000.
Yeah.
That's a 90% gross margin. Right now, it's a tiny part of the business, but the idea is that the more hardware they sell, the more software subscriptions they'll sell on a recurring basis.
Sure.
This is why I mentioned that annual recurring revenue. And that's the real number to watch, is the mix of revenue that's coming from software. Because once software gets to the point where it's more than hardware, that's when you're going to see a real path to profitability from this business.